Welcome back, everyone. This is Yvonne Davis and David Steele of the Rocky Mountain Compassionate Communication Network. And you're joining us for week 11 of Unleash Your Creativity, a blending of The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron and Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. So, as I said, we're in week 11, and today we're going to talk about inner locus of control and outer locus of control, which is something we've been talking about probably since week 1. But this is, like, if I were to encapsulate in a nutshell what the Artist's Way is all about, I would say that's what it's about. It's about learning that the power is internal and not external. And when we trust and surrender to that internal voice, we are connected with the divine. And that is the source of our creativity. So we're going to talk about that in more depth. But first, I said I was going to show you what I got for myself at Meiningers. So this is it, my little present to myself for to celebrate winning the Zebulon Writing Contest. It's called Screenplays About My Cat. I just thought that was so funny when I saw it. Yeah. And I like this because I don't know if you can tell. It's got this like intentionally distressed look about it, which I love that. If it had a coffee stain on it, I would be even happier. So no, I was just joking. A fake coffee stain. All right, so I wanted to get this because I got an idea recently for a book of flash fiction called Black Cat Flash for girls who like to wear black. And there'll be tips for chicks in black. So like the first one is poverty is more glamorous when you're wearing black. So anyway, yeah, you know, I talked about Cat Black. She's my alter ego. So, okay, so that's the fun. Now let's get down to some serious business. All right, you want to start us off with the talk about inner locus of control and outer locus?
I'd be more comfortable with you starting this off.
Okay.
I don't want to get off on the wrong foot. I want to make sure I do it in a way that's congruent with what you want to do.
Well, that's good because, you know, I like having all the power and, you know, I just want to be this like whirlwind, like a hurricane or a tornado coming in and running everybody's life and whipping everybody around. Like some people in power like to do that. Whoosh, whoosh.
You can reach me anytime, man. Oh.
Alrighty, so getting back to being serious. Yeah, so anyway, David just demonstrated something about, which is fine. It's not that you can't defer to someone else if it meets a need for comfort.
Especially if they're you. And you're making one of your videos about a topic you chose because you find it so inspiring.
True. And I will take responsibility now. This is my program. I did create it, and I am responsible for it. And I am the one who ultimately needs to come up with the material for each of these videos and hopefully make it entertaining and interesting and informative. So,
in that order?
Not necessarily. So anyway, yeah, so this is all up to me. Oh my God. Oh, what am I going to do? Okay, back to being serious. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to simply take responsibility. I'm going to get in touch with that inner locus of control where I have power, where I have empowered myself by taking responsibility. And that power feels really good. It used to scare the hell out of me. I mean, the thought of, you know, being responsible, oh my God, it was absolutely terrifying. I much preferred giving the power over to other people and letting them, you know, run my life for me because they were so much more brilliant than me. I figured they knew what they were doing until those moments came when I didn't like what they were doing. And then all of a sudden it's like, wait, hey, wait a minute. I would like some power here too.
This better not be about me.
No.
No, I'm kidding. I'm just totally kidding.
No, I'm not. Alrighty, so okay. I'm ready to get serious and talk about inner locus of control. So here's the thing. It can be really scary. And at the same time, and it's because in order to have an inner locus of control, it absolutely requires self-responsibility. If you give up responsibility to other people, you give up your power. It's as simple as that. It may seem like it's easier in the beginning because it is scary to take responsibility. But if you do that, then it's like a continual thing because you're always giving up power. It's like that is actually the definition of the term learned helplessness. People learn how to be helpless. They give up their power because they don't want to take responsibility. And then they no longer have the power. They've learned how to be helpless. And, you know, some people might think that that's a better way to live, but I don't think so. It's not the way I would want to live. And I think that's what autonomy is all about. Autonomy means self-empowerment. It means I'm the one who's responsible and I get the power. I get to be the one who makes the choice and makes things happen. And I get to meet my needs because I know I am empowered. And that's autonomy. That's why autonomy and choice often go together.
What if I don't want to give up blame?
Well, yeah, that's the other thing. You take responsibility and you give up blaming because responsibility and blame cannot exist in the same room. They just cannot. If you're responsible, you take responsibility, and that means for everything. For your life, for the way it's going, for the way you feel about things, for whether or not your needs are met. And that's about it. So, would you like to talk about external locus of control?
I'd like to talk a little bit about the word responsibility first, because you said it a ton of times.
Yeah.
Responsibility, it's our ability to respond. So when we take responsibility, it means moving into conscious action and enhancing our skill at working with our environment. I want to say one thing about the word responsibility, because it's one of those words that has a dual meaning, kind of like pride has a dual meaning. Be proud of what you did, and then pride goeth before a fall. Same word, different meanings. Often in the media and in legal circles, responsibility means who do we get to blame, who has to pay. And that's not what we're talking about. Yvonne talked about giving up blame, because blame is a way of putting control outside of ourselves where we can't reach it. So if I say that I feel anxious I feel disappointed because you didn't do your hair in the way that I enjoy the most. What's happening right there is I am putting you in control of my well-being. And if I want to feel better, I have to make you change. And so I am subservient to your whim because you have control over how I feel based on your behavior. And so that I feel because you is a formula for being a victim, for being at the mercy of someone else. And the other way that it works is you feel because I. You feel angry because I overcooked the lentils. And that, then what I'm saying is, it's my fault, that your well-being is my responsibility. And this is the formula for guilt. Guilt and victimhood are two of the most predominant coercive tools that are used on the planet. You know, getting someone to do something because they feel guilty, or not doing something because it was out of my control. I have no agency, I have no power, I have no influence. So that is, so I'm talking about your external locus of control as you requested. So when we think the power from our well-being comes from the way the world is organized, if you take that attitude, you're doomed to suffer, because the world goes on in a way the world doesn't even notice you. It just goes on and does its thing. And this really goes in hand with why we have expectations. Because I want to feel good, by God, the world has to be structured in this way. This event has to go exactly like this. And we experience lots of anxiety when we show up at an event, let's say, and when it's all in our mind and we've been building up for it, and oh, it's going to be so wonderful, it's going to be like this and that, and then instead it's going like that, and we're going, no, it's supposed to be going like this or that, something's wrong. And then either something's wrong with me, or something's wrong with the event, and I got to fix it, and I got to make it go like that, because that's what it was supposed to do. That's what expectations are. And that is totally controlled, correlated with me having to look to the outside world for assurance, for validity, for my well-being. I would say the vast majority of people on the planet, that is the level of consciousness that they are at. And we go to wars over that stuff, because we got to make the world be a certain way so I can feel good, and it's doomed to failure. So, and it creates lots of anxiety, and but it also provides distractions so that we don't have to, like we were talking about in the last video, so we don't have to pay attention to ourselves. So it's a great way, if it's really hard for you to be with yourself and be in solitude, it's a great way to not pay attention to that. And so, you know, one of the reasons we go for the external locus of control is connecting with our inner self can just seem so overwhelming and so scary. And so also there's a realm of protection, that if it's out there, I'm okay, I'm in my little cocoon. And I don't have to look at myself, because that's just way too much. So that is external locus of control.
Mm-hmm. Alrighty, so I hope that was helpful, because I know we've talked about it many times throughout the course of these 11 weeks. And it's just, like I said, I think it's absolutely fundamental to this program of the Artist's Way. If you can get that much, just understanding inner locus of control versus outer locus of control, and I mean get it like down to a cellular level where it changes your life, even just a little bit, I think it would be, it's like definitely worth the price of admission.
Yeah, so let me tell you, do a little story to illustrate. So let's say that we schedule lunch for 1 o'clock. And so I get there maybe at 5 minutes of 1. And I'm sitting there, I'm sitting by the big picture, you know, the big plate glass window looking out maybe at a stream or a little parky area, some greens, some trees and stuff. And I'm just sitting there and I'm watching for your car to pull into the parking lot. And it's 1, like, okay, great, she'll be here any second. And it's 5 minutes after 1, it's like, uh-oh, okay. Well, 5 minutes, that's not so bad. It gets to be 10 minutes after 1, and then I start to fume. Like, wait a minute. We had an appointment for 1, and It is now 10 minutes after 1 and you haven't showed up. That is so inconsiderate. That is so inconsiderate. Maybe traffic was heavy. So I sit there and I fume a little bit, and it gets to be 1:15. And now I am seething. Like, we live in the era of cell phones and text messages. It's now 15 minutes late. You didn't have the decency to even let me know you were running late. You know, I hope you didn't get flattened by a bus. I mean, that's about the only excuse I can think of, and I doubt if that happened. So I'm just absolutely, and you walk in the door, and you come in and you sit down, and I say, where the fuck have you been? And you're like, not going to respond very nicely to that. And the quality of our relationship is tumultuous. Back up. So I'm sitting at the restaurant, and we agreed to meet at 1 o'clock, and I get there at 5 minutes of 1, and I sit down, and I'm by the big plate glass window. You know, I'm looking out the window, and there's maybe a park or some greenery and landscaping. I'm watching for your car to come in. It gets to be 1 o'clock, and you don't show up, and I say, oh, well, Yvonne's not here yet. And I take a breath, and I look out, and wow, those clouds in the sky are really pretty. You know, it's a beautiful day. And look at those flowers coming up in the grass. And it gets to be 5 minutes after 1, and you're not there. And I just take a sip of water. I take a few minutes to breathe. It's like, wow, I've sure had a heavy day. This is like an unexpected gift, just this little space. And I just look at the trees some more, and they're dancing slightly in the breeze. And I marvel it's springtime and the grass is growing. And it's 10 minutes after 1, and I'm starting to get a little bit concerned. I'm hoping that you're okay. And, but I'm just really grooving on the spaciousness and the fact that in the middle of my busy schedule, all of a sudden I have a little spare time. And then you finally show up, and I'm like, oh, it's so nice to see you, you know, and I am delighted that you're here. And it was such a little gift. I had this 15 minutes of space to just kind of chill out and not do anything. And so thank you for being late.
Okay, I have another scenario for you.
Okay, before you do that other scenario, and actually Tom Friedman, who's a New York Times columnist, wrote a book called Thank You for Being Late, because he had a situation exactly like that. And in that space of time where he slowed down and didn't have to think about all the stuff he was doing, he actually came up with a solution to a problem he'd been working on for 6 months. And so when the person showed up, he said, thank you for being late. And then he wrote a book about it. But I used that scenario as an example of internal, external locus of control long before he wrote that book, just for the record. Another scenario.
Okay, so what if you're like super hungry and you're really looking forward to getting to the restaurant and eating a delicious meal to satisfy your hunger? So, you know, that's really on your mind. There's a really strong need to meet that need for food and nourishment. And the person, and also you have an appointment at 2 p.m. and you had planned to be at the restaurant at 1 o'clock to order your food, to have time to eat, and then time to get to your next appointment. So I'm not saying you necessarily need to get angry. That's not what I'm suggesting, but I'm just asking, you know, for how someone would respond when they don't necessarily have a whole hour to sit around looking at the clouds because they have other needs to meet.
So it's 5 minutes after 1 and you're my waitress, and you say, you know, I'm pretty hungry. Have you got like a bagel or a muffin, you know, or maybe a salad so I could just get some food in my stomach while I'm waiting for the other person? And then the rest of it gets into a bind where we have that expectation to outcome. So you're 15 minutes late. So maybe we're only going to have half an hour instead of 45 minutes. But in a world of abundance, that's still plenty. Maybe we wanted to get something done and we had a deadline. So either I call at 2 o'clock and I say I'm running a little bit late, or I say, well, let's see what we can get done in the next half hour and look at the next time we can meet. And not be caught up in it has to be a certain way. This goes back to the time management. We are so imprisoned by time. Did I talk about that before?
Well, I'm still not really satisfied because I'm saying like really hungry, like not a salad's not going to do it. And you have a commitment to your client, you know, or to the other person you've agreed to meet at 2 p.m. Okay. And to call up would actually would not feel like you were in integrity because you made a commitment to be there.
So here's another thing I could do. Gets to be 10 minutes after 1 or whatever, I might just give you a call and say, you know, I'm really running late on time, and maybe we should just reschedule. I have to prepare for this other big deal appointment.
Would you go ahead and have lunch?
I don't know. It gets really hard it gets so hypothetical that it gets. I don't know.
I don't think it is hypothetical because I've actually been in situations like that. Fortunately, I had done a lot of NVC work, so I didn't blame the other person, but I did take responsibility for the fact that I agreed to be there at 1 p.m. I was planning to have lunch, and I have other things I need to do.
Right.
So fortunately, the person did contact me by phone at 1:15, and let me know he was running late. It was actually your friend. You know who I'm talking about.
So this is really deep, Yvonne, because in your mind, when you talk about all these appointments and everything, there's a certain outcome that you are clinging to.
No, because to me, a commitment is, I mean, I have to be in integrity with myself and with other people.
Right.
And if I say I'm going to be someplace at 2 p.m., then I'm going to be there at 2 p.m.
Right.
And if I need to eat lunch, I'm going to eat lunch.
Right.
And I don't necessarily need to be angry at the person who's late, but I'm not going to sit there and wait for half an hour or 45 minutes and go hungry and then have to rush off to my next appointment just because that person didn't plan, or maybe they did get caught in traffic. Maybe it was completely beyond their ability to control the situation.
Right.
But I don't feel like I need to make that my problem. You know what I mean? Like I need to still do what I said I was going to do and meet my needs instead of saying, well, I no longer have power to feed myself. I no longer have power to be on time for my next appointment because this person is late.
Yeah, so that's, I feel, because that's making your well-being dependent on their behavior.
If you don't take care of your own needs. I took care of my own needs, and I was not angry.
Right.
I just made it clear. I need to eat because I have another appointment to go to, and this is when I plan to eat lunch. Right. Yeah. I just made it clear.
Right, so that's cool.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that because I think a lot of people, like myself, might be sitting there thinking, well, excuse me, but I have needs to meet. I can't just sit around staring at the clouds. You know, I have commitments. I have hunger.
Yeah, so
you just make it sound a little too fluffy and easy.
No, it's about where you put your perception.
Oh, I put my perception on meeting my needs. That doesn't mean I have to get angry, but I can tell you that I have never met our dear friend Mr. C since that one time when we were meeting for lunch and he was 45 minutes late. I never.
Well, that's an extreme case.
Well, he is unusual.
Yes, but I'm feeling bogged down. So what I'm hearing is you want to make it really clear in my story, because I was talking about where I put my perception. And I was talking about someone who's just a few minutes late, not someone who's really late. And I was also talking about a situation where hunger wasn't a big consideration. I was simply an exercise of two ways to carry my perception in a given situation.
Yeah, I'm just saying it has to be realistic. You know, not all situations are fluffy cloud watching situations.
Okay.
Okay, so anyway, I think David would have liked more space for his story, but it really triggers me, to be honest, because it's something that I worked with for a long time, many, many years, because I was codependent and I gave up my power for many, many years and ended up in situations where I was fuming because I didn't know how to take care of my needs. And I put the power in someone else's hands. And if that person didn't show up on time, didn't follow through on their commitments, if they were not in integrity, or if they didn't know how to consider other people's needs fairly, then I didn't know how to set that right. I didn't know how to say what was true for me. And I think it is okay to say when we decide our needs are going to be met. You don't have to get angry. You just make a decision that your needs are going to get met. And then, and if that person, doesn't meet your needs, it's also okay to end those relationships. And I've ended many relationships, more since NVC because I don't put up with stuff. I'm pretty tough. I'm a tough NVC girl. Alrighty, so sorry, I got a little tough on you as well.
Well, this is an example. See, it's been decades since I've been in a situation where I sacrificed my needs entirely for someone else. Mm. Because part of autonomy is being clear. Mm. So for me, the triggering aspect that you're talking about is firmly planning, saying what I heard is I'm not going to let you dictate the parameters of how well my day goes.
Exactly.
Yeah, which is exactly what I was talking about too.
Yeah.
I was just being more fluffy about it because I live in a world of relative abundance where things just work out and I don't have anxiety about them.
Yeah. Well, I don't anymore either because of the fact that I know I can say no.
But yeah, that's a really good point in that many, many people, I'm sure, can really relate more to what you were saying than what I was saying and say, oh, good for her, man. She really brought up a good point. He just didn't get it. I hope that. So anyway, but I think other people were probably relating to my point of view, but probably a lot fewer. I have learned over the course of years that generally when it comes to conflict, she's right and I'm wrong. If I just accept that and move on, it makes life much, much easier.
Yeah. And the thing is, though, is that David has no attachment to whether he's right or wrong. So it's super, super easy for him to just give it up and say, girl, you are right.
It's true.
Oh. And we get along really well. All right. So I think that's probably a good stopping point. So we'll leave it at that, and then we will be back tomorrow with more exciting information about autonomy.
And we'll just leave it to your imagination to figure out what happens once the camera goes off.
All right. So, but I'm not scared because he's a sweetie. All right. So we will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.